Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary, Orchard, and I have strapped on our Apple Watches and are ready to give you all the tips and tricks you need to get to grips with your Apple Watch. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by BetterHelp. Find their awesome new mental health podcast, Getting Better, Stories of Mental Health, on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or Spotify. And by Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is catching the food that's falling through the cracks of our food system by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code iOS. Woo! We are here and we are excited for iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, iPadOS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to talk about them here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard, back after a very brief break last week.
Yes, we are happy to have you back, Rosemary Orchard. Of course, a happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
We are ready to roll, I think, for this episode. You had this great idea based on some feedback that we had gotten.
Yeah.
And we can actually start with that feedback to talk about the Apple Watch. So what feedback did we receive?
Yeah, so we got a lovely message that came through from Ben in Omaha, and he said that he is a new user to the Apple Watch, and he wanted to know if there are any tips or tricks he can best use to, make the most use out of this amazing computer strapped to his wrist. Slight paraphrasing there, but first of all, thank you, Ben, for writing in. We love feedback, all of the feedback, especially when it gives us a whole show topic, or maybe even a series of show topics. We'll have to find out and see. But I thought it would be a great idea, Mikah, to dive into the Apple Watch, because I was going through playing with some things and I realized there's a whole bunch of stuff that I do on my Apple Watch that maybe other people don't know, like swapping the dock between favorites and recents and things like that. Some people might be missing out on some cool features.
There is this chance that we take some of these things for granted, that, we just do them. I remember there was some situation where you had talked about setting up a watch, and I had also set up the watch. And whenever you had talked about the process because you were helping somebody else, I had this realization of, wow, I just blew past all of this stuff that I just kind of did without thinking necessarily about how it might be something that folks might want to know, or that they, may not be aware of. And I love that there are these things that come up sometimes that people can check out and people can learn about the watch. And especially because I think a lot of times people are getting these either as gifts or for themselves for the main feature of the fitness and health tracking stuff. And then to be able to kind of go deeper with it from there takes a little bit of work. So I love how you've started out today's show, like the topic that you're talking about first, because it's a very simple one. But what I like about this is it's one of those questions you can ask people to you get a little bit about their personality. What kind of app arrangement do you use? So I'm going to switch here over to my Apple Watch. And of course, I've got my main screen here. But if I go back to this screen, this is the screen for the apps. And you can see that mine is currently in a list format. It's got the apps available, and then it's got the name of the app right next to it. But what I can do is actually change this between this list and the original way that this used to be set up by tapping and holding on the screen, and then choosing list view instead of grid view, grid view instead of list view. I tap on grid view, and now it switches to this really cool sort of honeycomb style grid that as I swipe around, the bubbles get bigger. And instead of using the text to identify what apps I have, I can now use the icons for those apps to identify and find the one that I'm looking for. I am curious, Rosemary, what kind of app arrangement do you use on your Apple Watch?
So I've got my Apple Watch right here, and I'm going to press the button on the side. And yep, I'm afraid I'm a list view person as well. Just because, unfortunately, the problem with the honeycomb, which just to show you again, you can either tap and hold here and then switch, or if you're on the iPhone itself, what you can do is in the Watch app. So you've got your Apple Watch here, and you've got your faces and everything. There's another option here for app view, and here's how you can easily toggle it between the two as well. And in the grid view, you can go ahead and you can change the arrangement of the apps. But my problem with this is things like the apps that I've most recently installed, they tend to end up right on these outside edges. And they're the ones that I'm looking for first, of course. And so I have to say, I don't think I've ever curated this view really. I tried on an old Apple Watch ages ago, trying to rearrange things by, dragging them around. You just pick them up and you drag them. But I found it kind of tricky. And personally, I find that I rarely end up launching apps from the app list anyway, or the grid, just because there are better ways to do it. And I know that some of them are perhaps easy to figure out, but some of them are a bit trickier because I personally like to use complications and custom watch faces. I'm not sure about you, Mikah, how you most frequently open apps on your Apple Watch.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely via complication. And honestly, the biggest thing for me with the grid view is that I just don't remember apps based on their icon for the most part. It's easier for me to look at the text and go, oh, right, that's that app versus, and I don't really use apps necessarily a whole lot on my Apple Watch. A lot of times it's the built-in apps that Apple has already given, not a whole lot of third-party apps that I use from my Apple Watch. The next thing, though, is the very handy, and certainly one that I use a lot, very handy control center, which you can access by swiping up from the bottom of your Apple Watch screen. This control center has lots of different options. On mine in the top left, those are settings for cellular, for wireless. On the right is Wi-Fi. There's this really handy button here that lets you find your iPhone. If I tap on that right now, it will make sound. It will make my iPhone make a sound and I can find it. And what's great about that is even if you have your phone on silent, even if you have it just on vibrate, it doesn't matter. It will go ahead and circumvent those settings so that you can find it. This is the I truly lost my iPhone and I need to find it button. And pro tip. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you know about the extra tip, Mikah, with the tap and hold on that one? Because I think we should tell everybody about that too.
Absolutely. This is what makes this feature even extra magical. If you are looking around for your iPhone as you use this feature, you can use both sight and sound. If you tap and hold on that button, not only will it chime out loud, but it will also light up the LED flash on the back of the iPhone and flash that flash. So you'll also be able to get a visual cue of where your iPhone is. Very handy feature. I love it. I love that this is a thing, and it's one that I just use so often. Well, not so often. I don't lose my iPhone all that often, but when I do, I absolutely use this feature. Now, the other things in here are battery percentage, which you can see there. Do not disturb on the right and no sound on the left. I have no sound turned on at all times. I don't like the chimes from the watch. This button here is very cool when you are when you swim or when you hop in the shower or when you're washing dishes or anything involved with water. You go ahead and tap that button, and what it does is it ignores screen inputs. So tapping on the screen will not activate anything accidentally, because water is also able to trigger a capacitive screen. So this keeps that from happening. The only way to unlock the screen is by scrolling with the digital crown on the side until the screen unlocks. And bonus, it also does this cool thing where it emits a sound from the speaker that will shoot water that is logged inside of the speaker grill out. So this is a great feature for whenever you're swimming or doing anything like that. It'll get the water outside of the inner part of the phone, of the watch, and will also make sure that you don't accidentally tap anything. Next is the light function. There are 3 different options here. There's a main white screen, there's a flashing white screen, and there's a red screen. So the first two can get very, very bright. In fact, in more recent models of the Apple Watch, Apple has included a special chip that helps to further improve the brightness of the screen whenever you're using that light. It is dim while you're looking at it, but whenever you turn it away to actually use it kind of as, because if you can imagine, I turn it on and then I turn it away so that I can, find my keys in a bag or look for something on the ground or move through a space. It'll get brighter. And the reason why they include a red one, this is just a bit of understanding about physics, is that there are different wavelengths of light, and literal lengths of these wavelengths, and red light has one of the shortest wavelengths, and because of that, it means that red light is not going to get thrown as far. So I like to call that red light that's available in there the nighttime light, because it means that you can turn on that red light and be able to look around at the space directly in front of you, but it's less likely that you're going to disturb someone else who's asleep, because that light doesn't get to throw as far because those wavelengths are much, much, much shorter. And so it's a very handy thing for night. Let's head back into this view so we can go through the rest of Control Center here real quick. And then we're going to have Rosemary tell us about how we can reorganize or rearrange these features and maybe add or remove some of them. So the next one is airplane mode, which everybody's familiar with. It's just going to disable the different wireless methods. This AirPlay icon will actually let you choose different outputs for your headphone or for audio. So right now, anything would be playing from the Apple Watch. I can switch that to my AirPods if I want to, or tap connect to device to connect another device there. This button turns on Walkie Talkie, which is a feature from Apple for Apple Watch that lets you basically turn your Apple Watch into a walkie talkie. By tapping on that, it says, I'm available for walkie talkie. And then anyone else who I've added as a walkie talkie friend will also be available for walkie talkie. And we can do that together. And then the last one is just a setting that is listening for sound to make sure that your surroundings are not too loud or able to damage your hearing. So those are some of the ones that are available. But Rosemary, I was hoping you could tell us, what if I don't want one of those at the top, or there's one that I use less or one that I use more? How do I go about kind of organizing them, and then also adding some that I actually didn't have in my list, like theater mode or cinema mode?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can do this, and I'm just going to quickly swipe back to the camera on my phone so I can show this off. So if you open Control Center, let me just use the zoom so that everyone who's actually watching the stream can see. So again, to go into Control Center, you swipe up from the bottom of your screen, approximately where the 6 is. And then if you scroll right down to the bottom, there's this little edit button right here. And if you tap on that edit, then of course you can go ahead and shuffle some things around. But you'll notice that some of these have got little red dots next to them. Those are just like when you've entered the editing application mode on your iPhone, that is how you can remove them. So for example, if you don't want Classroom, then you can get rid of this. And then it should show down at the bottom in the More section. If you don't have a More section, that's because you've got all of the options available to you. So if, for example, like me, you rarely ever use Walkie Talkie, I can just turn that off. And that makes that much easier, because some of these modes, for example, the dinging of your iPhone, that is a great feature. I really love that feature, but oh my gosh, is that the worst one to hit by accident in a cinema? So I have carefully curated and rearranged my Control Center so that I won't accidentally hit the ding iPhone button when I'm actually looking for the flashlight, which I nearly always leave in the red mode, because it's easy enough to go to white if I want to. But if I'm up in the middle of the night and I don't want to be kept up, but I need to look for something, guess what? The thing that's already strapped to my wrist, that's the one that's the most convenient to help me find something if I've dropped something down the side of the bed, for example. It's a really great device, and I recommend customizing your Control Center. Have a play, have a poke at some of the things. Of course, if you have a cellular watch, then you will have a cellular icon as well. And tapping on that will give you some information, such as which plan you're on or which network you're on, and so on and so forth. And then after a little while of loading, it'll show you the status. But have a poke, have a play, and remember that all of these features are very useful, and you can combine them at different times of day as well. Because I don't know about you, Mikah, but I love the always on screen on an Apple Watch. But sometimes sometimes I find I don't want an always on screen. Like, for example, when I'm trying to sleep at night. And I know that my mom complained to me a couple of months ago that my dad's watch was waking her up in the middle of the night because it was dinging, it was making sounds,
No.
and the screen kept lighting up. And she was understandably quite irate. And I think I found a really great fix for them for that. But the always on screen is a great feature. And that is something that you can change as well. And I don't know if you want to share that one off, Mikah, as my camera's being a bit blurry right now.
So the always on screen is a feature of newer Apple Watches that does what it says on the tin. It keeps your screen on at all times. It's usually a lot dimmer when the watch is not in kind of the view position of being up and you looking at it. And it also reduces the refresh rate of the screen by quite a bit. So you won't get that second hand on most of the watch faces. So bringing it back up will actually show that second hand. But you don't have to have the always on screen if you don't want to. I have mine turned on, and it is nice to be able to kind of glance down at any time and be able to see, okay, this is the current time. But some folks don't want that on, or they want it to change based on what you are doing. So for example, when you turn sleep mode on the Apple Watch, which is a do not disturb setting, or a focus mode as they call them these days, it will turn off that always on screen, which is very handy for folks who are trying to use it for sleep tracking. But let's just walk through how to turn it off if it's not a feature for you. Because I've actually tried it both with the always on screen turned off and on, and I ended up turning the always on screen back on. So I will tap the digital crown on the side to go to the apps view, and whether you have a list or a grid, it doesn't matter. We're just going to find the settings app. So I'm scrolling down. This, of course, is listed alphabetically, and we get down to settings. I'll tap on settings, and then from there, I will tap display and brightness. And then I can scroll down until I get to always on, and I can tap on that setting and then turn that off if I want to. Now, there are a lot more configurable settings in here, including show complication data, show notification, and show apps. So let's tap into each one of those. Show complication data says you can choose which complications show data when your wrist is down. So it'll show you the list of apps that have complications, and then you can toggle each of those off and on independently, or you can turn it off. So that's going to save even more battery life when it's on, when you have the always on screen turned on. So if I were to turn that off, my main screen, the complications that I have, which are those little bits of information on my main screen. We'll go back to the main screen in a second. I'll point out complications in case you're wondering what those are. I'll tap out of this because I want to keep my complication data turned on. And then show notifications, you can turn on or off notifications. I actually don't want notifications to show when my screen is down, so I'm going to turn that feature off. And then last but not least is show apps. So if you had an app launched, for example, and you were using it and then you put your screen down, then this will let you choose whether or not to show those apps when your watch is not viewable. I'm actually going to turn that off too, because if I put my wrist down, I don't want those apps to stay lit. We'll go back to the main screen super quick just so I can show you. Complications are these things around the outside and in between the clock. So in the top left, I've got a fantastical complication that is telling me that I'm currently in an event that started or that ends at 11 a.m. On the top right, I believe that's caret weather, which is showing the high, the low, and the current weather temperature. In the bottom right is activity. It shows how much activity I've had for the day. And then the bottom left is a complication for the timer, which I use all the time. The middle bottom here, I've got a complication that's basically just a shortcut to access the remote so I can control my Apple TV. In the right here is the home app so that I can tap on that and make adjustments to the calendar as I want, or excuse me, to my home as I want to. And in the left is just the calendar because I like to have the day of the week and the day of the month displayed on my calendar. And then you can choose to have the digital time or the or your initials or other things right there in the top middle. I just like to have both analog and digital on my watch face visible at all times. So those are complications, just so you know. But yes, that is how you make changes to the always on display. If you have a newer watch, Apple Watch Series 5 or later, you are able to do always on display on your Apple Watch.
Yes, and I love the fact that we have these complications, and I'm really glad, Mikah, that you mentioned the complications, because the complications allow us to quickly do things like launch apps and go into them, and we can customize our watch faces to do more. And I guess we'll get to that after the break.
Yes, we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll come back with complications and watch faces and how you can combine the two of those to customize your watch just as you want it. But I do want to tell you real quick about BetterHelp. Look, therapy is this, sometimes people think of therapy as sort of this idea where something's got to go horribly wrong in your life, and then you go and you seek help. But what's cool about therapy is that it can actually just be a regular thing that you do. It could be a part of your regular everyday life, because therapy is not just about sort of solving these complex problems. Think of it like a tune-up. Think of it like adding oil to the engine. It is the opportunity to regularly check in with yourself and kind of get a handle on the different things that you're dealing with, and maybe some of the things that you didn't realize you were dealing with. That's what I think makes therapy pretty awesome. And we talk about BetterHelp on this show, and they're actually releasing a new podcast that's called Getting Better: Stories of Mental Health. You can check it out. Season 1 just dropped. There are episodes featuring interviews with notable people like NBA Hall of Famer Chris Bosh talking about anxiety, pop star Meghan Trainor on motherhood and panic attacks, Wilmer Valderrama on immigration to a new country, and loads more. Mental health is something we should all be focusing on just as much as we focus on our physical health. And that's something that I think people need to be reminded of, because mental health is just as important. So you can join BetterHelp as they continue the fight to destigmatize mental health and show people that everyone struggles with something, so we need to talk about it. You can do your part to help by listening and sharing your favorite episode and spreading the word that it's okay to not be okay. So find their awesome new mental health podcast, Getting Better: Stories of Mental Health, on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or Spotify. And of course, thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back to the show, and it's time to talk about customizing our Apple Watch with watch faces and complications.
Well, watch faces are my favorite way to customize the Apple Watch because, of course, while you can customize the Apple Watch when you purchase it by deciding if you want silver or black or starlight is the current slightly champagne color Apple Watch is, that's a decision that you make once, and then you're going to keep your Apple Watch for at least a year, I would hope, probably several years, because these are pretty good devices. And unless there's a particular feature that you want or need, there's not necessarily a reason to upgrade every single year. So the way that we customize the actual watch face and what we look like is how we can make it match our outfit every day or suit the activity that we're doing by giving us quick access to the apps that we need. So I noticed, Mikah, you said that the timer app is a complication that you regularly launch. I have a watch face for when I'm cooking, which has a timer on it. So that it shows me my next upcoming timer, as so I can quickly just glance down at my watch and see, right, I've got 3 minutes before the next thing dings. I'll empty the dishwasher or something like that. And I know that a lot of people like to use things like that on their Apple Watch, but they struggle a little bit at times. And so the way that you can customize this is, if I find the easiest way to do it is open the Watch app on my iPhone. You can do this on your Apple Watch itself, but in the Watch app on your iPhone, you see your faces going across the top. And then you can tap on Edit, and this gives you a list view where you can remove some of these if you wanted to, or quickly reorder them. But you can also go into the face gallery and then choose to add more faces from there. And Mikah, I'm having a little trouble with my video here. It seems to be coming through quite blurry. So I'm going to ask you to show people how we can do that. And I'll give you a little hand as you go.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. So I have launched the Apple Watch app for myself. Do you want to tell us again how we get from here to the screen that you were after?
Yeah. So if you tap on Watch Gallery at the bottom in the middle, then that will take you to, or the Face Gallery, sorry, it takes you to a gallery of faces, and it shows off some new things that you can do. Now, depending on which Apple Watch you have, you may have slightly different faces and complications available to you. So for example, the newest Apple Watch has a slightly larger face, which means that you've got a bit more space for the modular duo, for example. But you can tap on any watch face, and then you can just change some options. So for example, if you change the colors, the rainbow option on the left is my favorite, Mikah, because it then just adds all of the colors to all of the things. But maybe if you're wearing a pink outfit, you could make it pink, or in Mikah's case, it's going to be green. We all know it's green, Mikah.
Yes, everyone knows.
Yeah. And then it just puts all of the accents on the watch face into a green color, and it makes everything else a sort of white or gray to blend in. And I really like that option. But underneath that, then you can choose your complications. And each watch face has different complications that you can choose. So the modular duo has a top left and 2 modular options. And here you can scroll down. These are grouped by application, and then you can see the different options available to you from each app. And some apps have got more complications available in some places than others. And sometimes you'll find that an app doesn't even offer that kind of complication because they don't think that they can use that space efficiently. But it means that you can have information displayed to you. And also when you tap on the complication, it then opens the app. So instead of adding 6 carat complications to your Apple Watch, for example, you might just want 1, and then you can tap on it and see all of the carat weather information. And I know carat has a lot of complications, which is why I'm using them as an example.
Let's see. Let's go back to carat. Yeah, weather, wind, gusts, and then I can tap more. Weather, wind, gusts, precipitation chance, UV index, humidity, pressure, visibility, dew point, cloud cover, condition only, air quality, sunrise, sunset, Fahrenheit, Celsius, temp, high, low, weather, maps, alerts, ocular sensor.
Ooh.
And then let's look at one of these larger complications. Right now, it's the moon, but we'll choose, let's go with something fun here. Let's go with the news thing. So there you can see it'll actually show a headline. I can choose sound levels, which if I went to the screen, it would do that. If the screen is active, it would show that actively, which is kind of cool, but also probably very battery draining.
Though if you put your wrist down, then it won't show you that. It'll only be while you're actively looking at your watch face that it does things like that, because the Apple Watch does try to conserve battery.
And then let's see, let's go with some fun weather stuff like rain. And then for the bottom, we will choose, right now that's got UV and index. We'll choose, I don't know. Let's go with Fantastical. So it's not showing right now because it hasn't synced it, but in that spot, it would show my calendar events right there, and I could add that to my screen. And by adding it to the screen, then it'll set it as the active one. I can also tap in the top right to share this screen with someone else. So if I've set up a really cool screen and somebody else who has an Apple Watch is like, oh man, that's such a great idea, you can go ahead and share that with somebody else, which is very fun. Any other ones you want to talk about in this section? I'm not going to tap into the portrait. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say it's worth looking at the portrait one and also the photos one, because I love the fact that you can have photos show on your Apple Watch in the background. And portraits is one of the ways to do that. There's also artist is the other one I was thinking of, and that is, of course, specifically art and Memoji. Naturally, there's a Memoji base.
Yes. So the reason I'm not tapping into the portrait mode is because I've got photos of my niece, and I don't think I've shared any of those online. I just don't feel comfortable doing so. But that is one of the portrait faces that I have made for my Apple Watch, and it will actually use the portrait information to kind of add some depth and layering so that the text will kind of appear above and below certain things. It's a very cool feature. I recommend people try it out. But the Memoji one is here, and I can switch between the different Animoji, mouse, octopus, cow, giraffe, etc. I guess it doesn't let you do, that's kind of sad. It doesn't let you do your own Animoji. So you have to use the ones that, it says the face features the memoji you have created and all the Animoji characters. I wonder why it's not showing my, the different memoji that I have created. That's probably a bug. I am not I'm not using a beta, so I don't know what's going on there. I'll have to look into that and see what's going on. Of course,
I had to scroll all the way to the left, Mikah, where you're on all Animoji. If I scroll further left, then I've got the Memoji. I'm guessing. Don't. Oh, no, that's sad. That's very sad.
Makes me sad. So this is what I would have mine, and I can add that to my Apple Watch, and then I will show you what that looks like on my Apple Watch. Oh, I thought it would cycle between the different Animoji. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay, good. So now it's the panda bear, and I don't know what it's using to... Oh, I think it's chewing right now. That's what it's doing. That's cute.
Yeah.
So you can see that. And I imagine that if I were to go down and then bring it back up, it probably... Yes. Oh, now it's the alien. Creepy. And I tapped on it, and it does some reactions there. Based
that's
on
pretty awesome.
Me tapping on it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun, actually. I wish it had my Memoji, so I'm going to have to check out what's going on there to try to fix that.
I am running the iPhone and the Apple Watch betas, which, of course, potentially have fixed some bugs. But one of the things that I did just send you, Mikah, is I shared one of my watch faces with you via messages, I hope.
Yes.
And one of the features that I love with Complications is if you use an analog style watch face, sometimes it can be quite easy to tell what the time is, sometimes not so easy. So I found using time zones with my current location allows me to see the digital time as well as the analog time, which gives me extra functionality, which is quite nice because sometimes the analog face is the fashion look that I'm going for, but I need the functionality of knowing that it's 10 minutes past the hour instead of quarter past the hour at a quick glance.
Yes, I agree. 100%. I like to have both of those available at the same time. I've got that watch face now on in my Apple Watch, and I love that. It's a fun little like trading card game a little bit that doesn't cost you or the environment anything like NFTs. You could easily set up your own watch faces as you wish. All right, let's talk about a little bit more about complications because we covered watch face customization, but the big thing is complications. And complications, this comes from the classic watch maker world where a watch has the basic feature, of course, of telling the time, but any watch that also has the ability to measure the air pressure, for example, or the day of the week, or any other kind of tracking information that is available, any other little meter that's available on the watch, those have always been called complications. So Apple took that verbiage from the Apple or from the watchmaker world and decided to use that for its Apple Watch as well. So you can add different bits of information from Apple's own apps and also from third-party apps right there on your watch screen. So I've got, as I mentioned them before, Fantastical and Carrot Weather and the timer and the activity on my Apple Watch. Those are all complications that can be added. But how do we go about adding complications and editing complications? What's the best way to do that, Rosemary?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. And step one is installing the app that gives you that data onto your Apple Watch. Now, if you already have the app installed on your iPhone, then it's actually quite easy to do. And so what you can do is on your iPhone in the Watch app, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see installed on Apple Watch a bunch of apps. And then below that, you'll probably find that you have other apps which aren't installed on your Apple Watch, where you can go ahead and tap install. So if you want the Etsy app installed on your watch, then you could do that, for example, if you're me. And this, of course, gives you more apps. Apps give us complications because a complication is giving us data that comes from somewhere. And things like the calendar app, the native calendar app, that's built into watchOS and iOS. And so that's where that data comes from. But Fantastical can give us a different view, but it needs to have the app installed to give us that data. And so the other option that we have is actually on our Apple Watch itself, where if we tap and hold on the watch face, then of course we can edit it and then we can view the complications available to us. If we just swipe over onto the option that allows us to edit our complications. Some watch faces have got more customizations that you can do on the watch than others. Then you just tap on a complication. And then this is quite nice because here you can actually see what that kind of data looks like. So if I want the compass, for example, on this face, then I've got a little preview of what it looks like. And then when I tap back and select the watch face, then it will in a moment update and show me the right information. Now, I think the compass, it is affected by magnets, funnily enough. But there we go. If I turn my watch, it's kind of difficult to do this, but there we go. It is indeed actually pointing north. I managed to position my wrist pointing north. Magic. But if you want another app on your Apple Watch, then the easiest thing to do is to open the apps by pressing the crown once and then scroll up and look for the App Store. Now, if you're in the grid mode, then you're going to have to do some swiping around and look for the circular blue icon with a white A. And then when the App Store loads, of course, you can scroll down just like you can in the App Store on your phone. And there's some various app recommendations. And you have right at the top a search option. And if you tap on the search, then you should get the option to input something. I have the latest Apple Watch, so I have a keyboard option available to me here, but I can also just tap on the microphone to dictate something, and then it will go ahead and search for that, whatever it is that I search for. And then once I've got that, then I should have some more complications, and they allow me to do things like quickly see the time or indeed even open the compass. Now, there are some other options available, and if you find them, then if I scroll back up to Carrot, then you'll see that the more option, just like it was available as Mikah showed on the iPhone, is here too. And then that's where you can get your 8,001 various Carrot complication options. But different shape complications and different size complications give us different options. So, for example, this tiny little time that's shown in an analog watch face has very few options for me. I only have the calendar, personalization, which is something that you set up when you set up your Apple Watch, the stopwatch, the time, and timers, and that's it. Those are the only options available to me. But if you scroll right up to the top, if you don't want to use a space, you can tap off. And then that will just completely remove data from that area. And so now this watch face is just the California dial with, I believe that's Carrot's ocular sensor there. And that's it. There's nothing else there.
Nice. Complications, again, you can kind of go wild with complications if you want to. There are loads available based on the apps that you add. So have fun with that. Pick out different ones. Try out different ones depending on if you're going for a large size complication or a small one. Different apps will have customizations available within their own apps in many cases. It's a lot of fun to customize. And I think that that's also why Apple added that ability to share, because by sharing, then you are able to help someone kind of save time when they are looking to add an Apple Watch face that has some special complications that you've set up. All right. This next one is definitely a Rosemary Orchard special. It's all about changing your watch face automatically based on the focus modes that you have set up. So can you tell us about this, how we can kind of automate the process of changing our Apple Watch faces?
Yes. So to start with, you'll need to use the Shortcuts app. And so I'll just pull up Shortcuts on my iPhone here. And I've just in the Create New Shortcut option right now, because to start with, I'm just going to give you a little overview of the options. If we look inside of the actions by tapping the search bar at the bottom and then go to apps, then once it loads, down somewhere near the bottom of your app list, I do have quite a few apps installed, you'll find the Watch app. And here is where you can customize a lot of different things so that you can do things like set cinema mode or theater mode, as it used to be called, or you can change your current watch face, or you can get your current watch face. And you can do things like setting wake on wrist raise as well. So that if, for example, we had somebody who wrote into us a while ago, and he was asking about how he could make sure that his watch didn't get input while he was playing golf. This is how we do that. We can control various things here. And so if, for example, you always want to set a particular watch face, then you use the set watch face action. And then when you tap it, it gives you a list. Now, I would recommend having the watch app open somewhere where you can just go back to it and then take a look. And I like to go into the edit option for my faces for this, because it shows me all of my watch faces in the same order that they appear in Shortcuts. Because I have on this screen alone, I have 2 X large faces and I can't give them names. So I do need to do a little bit of matching up mentally to figure things out. But I'm going to use fire and water as this. So if I use this, then it will set my watch face. Now it's coming up with this notification, and I know a lot of people are like it when they get told that Shortcuts did the thing, and some people hate it. If you, like me, you hate it, once you've set this, tap on the expand and turn off show when run, and then that deals with it. And so now when I run it, it just sets my watch face, and that's it, finished. Apart from the fact that we want this to happen automatically. So if we close that shortcut and go into our automations, then we can use any of our personal automations to set our watch face automatically. So for example, we can use our sleep watch face to, or our sleep focus, which is the sleep is grouped under time of day and alarm at the top. The other focus modes, you need to scroll down a little bit and then you'll see them. So for example, you want to always have a particular complication available when driving, create a watch face and use your driving focus mode to enable that. So in here, I'm just going to use when bedtime begins for my sleep one. And then here we can either use the set watch face action, or if somebody's gone ahead and done something magic for you, like created a shortcut, then you can, instead of using the set watch face action, you can use the run shortcut action. And then this will allow you to do things like run that shortcut that I made for my dad so that my mom doesn't divorce him for wearing an Apple Watch in bed. Because this was getting to be quite a problem. My mom struggles with sleeping at night sometimes, as do, I'm sure, most of us. But she kept being woken up by my dad's Apple Watch dinging. And of course, my dad was just blithely sleeping on through it, as some people are able/want to do so. So I did a sleep watch face shortcut for him. And all it does is it sets his watch face to one of the X large watch faces that he likes at night so that he can see the time if he wakes up. It turns cinema mode on and it turns silent mode on. You'll be pleased to hear, Mikah, divorce is now off the table again. Whew. Thankfully, because this was driving my mom completely crazy. But this works, and so he uses the run shortcut action on his automation to do this. But then he wanted his watch face and everything changed back during the day. So I created a day watch face action for him, and this turns cinema mode off and turns silent mode off. But then I did some extra magic, Mikah, because he wants one watch face at the weekends and one during the week. And if you take the first letter of the day of the week, at least in the English language and several other languages as well, it's S. And those are the only days of the week that when you format them to just the single letter at the beginning are S. So I got the current date, and then I'm using a format action to format it with 5 capital E's. And this just gives you one letter, that very first letter of the day of the week. And if it's the weekend, then we set the California watch face. Otherwise, he uses the color watch face. And we can put links to both of those shortcuts in the show notes for people. And that one is just used with the run shortcut action. And then the automation trigger is with sleep and then waking up. And then that's it. We just use the run shortcut action there, and make sure when you're done, turn off ask before running, because otherwise your watch face won't change automatically.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. All right. A couple more here before we round out this part of the show. The first one is customizing your watch dock, which is actually a more important feature than I think people realize. So, to access your watch dock, you simply tap click the sidebar button here, or it's not the sidebar button, but the side button here, and that will launch the dock. And you can see you've got I have now playing, heart rate, messages, workout music, carrot, timers, deliveries, etc. And then I can go into all apps. Now, there are two kind of different methods for setting up your dock, and that will actually make a difference in how your apps operate, because apps that are running in the dock are actually updating a little bit more frequently than apps that are not running in the dock. The dock is kind of the place where you store apps that you're going to be using most frequently. And so that's why a lot of people will, in their iPhone, you launch the Watch app, you choose dock, will choose favorites instead of recents, because that will make sure that those apps appear in the dock, available to be accessed at any given time. So I've got now playing, heart rate, messages, activity, workout music, carrot, timers, maps, and deliveries. And the reason I have those apps in the dock is because those are the ones that I use the most frequently. Now playing all the time. I want heart rate to have as much access as it needs to be able to properly track my heart rate. And that also means that when I open the heart rate app, I don't have to wait as long to get a result. Messages is one that I use on the Apple Watch a lot. And then the rest of these are kind of on there because, again, like timers and carrot are ones that I'm using pretty regularly. So those are the ones that I choose to have. You can choose recents, and what that means is that kind of like how it is on your iPhone when you swipe up from the bottom and you can see all of those apps in the dock that are running in the background. It's just using the ones that are most recently used, keeping those alive. But I don't know, Rosemary, do you have your favorites set, or do you just go with the recents?
I use the favorites. So what I've done is I've not used all of the favorites available to me. So you can add quite a few different apps to your favorites. I've got just 5 sets. So I've got messages, timers, just press record, which is a great way to record audio and keep the note as well. Drafts and alarms, because those are the ones that I tend to use most frequently. And those are the ones that I want to be available to me at all times, regardless of which watch face I'm using and which complications are on said watch face. Now, if we scroll down, you'll see that there is a shortcuts one. And I've just realized, Mikah, that's not in my favorites. I think that might be a bit of a faux pas considering Shotcuts Corner. So I'll put that in there too. But it is really useful for me to have my favorites available to me. And every so often I try recents, but I find that it's nice to have the apps that I want in the order that I have set available. So I may have to reshuffle that a little bit now I've added shortcuts.
And then lastly is, did you already cover the, cinema mode with sleep focus? So you basically covered all of those different options for using cinema mode as one of, as a way to kind of hack the system a little bit. So with that does bring us to the end of this first part of the show. We hope that we've helped you get to grips with the Apple Watch and that you learned a thing or two today that maybe you didn't know about the Apple Watch. And hey, if you've got a tip for something on the Apple Watch that maybe we did not cover or that you love to do that you want to tell other people about, iOS Today at twit.tv is where you can send that information to us, and we would love to share that on the show. We're going to take a quick break.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I was going to say, if Ben has any more questions, he should please let us know because we do like answering all of those feedback questions. That we do. All right, let's take a quick break before we come back with the news. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Imperfect Foods. I love Imperfect Foods. But we've got to talk about a 3-for-1 New Year's resolution that you can do. You can reduce food waste, you can save time on grocery shopping, and you can eat more fresh and delicious food. What? Think it's too good to be true? It's not too good to be true. You can think again because you can try Imperfect Foods. That is how you could do all of those things. Here is a cringeworthy stat to start 2022. Each year, 35% of the food supply goes unsold or uneaten in the U.S. Imperfect Foods is working to turn this around by sourcing foods that would otherwise fall through the cracks of our food system.
Combating climate change feels big. It feels overwhelming. And what can one individual person do? Well, there is an easy and delicious way to make an impact, and it's called Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is a grocery delivery service that offers an entire line of sustainable groceries that taste delicious and reduce waste by embracing the natural imperfections in food. Visit imperfectfoods.com to see if they deliver in your area. That's the most important part. Once you sign up, you can personalize your weekly grocery order with fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, and yummy snacks. Plus, your order will arrive on the same day each week. That's very handy. That makes it easy to build a stress-free routine. On average, Imperfect Foods customers save 6 to 8 pounds of food with every order. And unlike on-demand delivery companies, Imperfect delivers weekly by neighborhood. This is a unique model that produces 25 to 75% fewer emissions than individual trips to the grocery store. Plus, and this is easily my favorite thing, you can say goodbye to packaging guilt because Imperfect Foods is the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your packaging after every order. I've used lots of different delivery services and different food boxes and all that kind of stuff. And yes, that's always one of the things that ends up being a struggle for me is that you get these ice packs and those sort of metallic foil bags that are supposed to keep foods cool and all that kind of stuff. And then you don't know what to do with them after you're done. Imperfect Foods will actually go ahead and collect those at the next pickup. It's very handy. I went online and signed up for Imperfect Foods and chose the different groceries that I wanted. It was kind of cool. It was like I think it was 1 or 2 days before the delivery day was Thursday for me. You can go in and start see what they just automatically recommend for you, and then you can choose to add or subtract things. And I liked everything that they had ready to deliver to me, so I just went ahead and stuck with what was there by default. But what was wild is that I must have not completely read the whole list, because the day that the Imperfect Foods box arrived, I was pulling everything out, and suddenly I get near the bottom and I pick it up, and there's a pumpkin pie inside of the box. And I thought, a whole pumpkin pie? That's incredible. So that was a lot of fun. But what's kind of wild too is that I thought, I'm going to pull something out and it's going to have like hundreds of roots all over it, and it's, going to be making noises at me or something. No, everything looked just fine. There was no concern there. You might be scared because it's called Imperfect Foods, but even these imperfect, quote unquote, foods are still pretty incredible. So well worth checking it out. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code iOS. Again, that's 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value at imperfectfoods.com when you use the promo code iOS. Join the movement at imperfectfoods.com with the promo code iOS. And of course, our thanks to Imperfect Foods for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today and for sponsoring Ma Belle with delicious produce and snacks and apparently whole pumpkin pies at times. Pretty wild stuff. Thank you, Imperfect Foods. All right, let's head into the news. This first one is, I think, a breath of fresh air for those of us who are managing our family's devices and trying to keep everybody safe. Apple will not let you stay on iOS 14 with the newest security updates. It's time to get updated. It is time to roll along because you need to get those security updates. And the way that you do that is by upgrading to iOS 15. It says, even before the iOS 15 announcement, 9to5Mac found out that Apple was working on a new way to deliver alternate security updates to iPhone and iPad users. The company later confirmed that it would offer security patches for iOS 14 to users who weren't ready to upgrade to iOS 15. But at this point, it seems that is no longer the case. So they were offering security updates for some time, but now you will need to upgrade to iOS 15.
Yes, and just a reminder for everyone, all of the devices that supported iOS 14 also get support on iOS 15. So there is now no good reason not to upgrade, especially because Apple are probably going to make it happen automatically at some point. So you may as well do it at a moment where it's convenient for you. I know I've already grabbed all of my family's devices and done all of the updates recently to make sure that nothing happens when they aren't expecting things to happen. And that also conveniently, by plugging my grandmother's iPad into my Mac, I was able to get around the fact that she has no extra storage space left. So that worked out quite well. So take control and do it when you have a moment.
Yes, as soon as possible. Now a bit of annoyance. Netflix has once again raised the prices in the US and in Canada. Netflix is possibly up to 4 times the cost of Apple TV Plus. That said, Netflix has a lot more shows and a lot more shows I watch than Apple TV Plus does. So while that is, for 9 to 5 Mac, that is a good headline for a site that covers Apple stuff. For me, the value of Netflix outweighs the value of Apple TV Plus, given that there are maybe 2 shows on Apple TV Plus that I've watched with any regularity, but lots more on Netflix that I've watched with regularity. But yeah, that's the thing that's happening right now.
Yes. The other thing that is worth mentioning here is you may get a different price for signing up to the Netflix subscription inside of the app on, for example, the Apple TV versus on the website. So it's worth double checking to make sure you're getting the best price available to you, especially because those extra dollars do add up. And so if the prices are going up, it's worth making sure you're buying it in the cheapest way. And sometimes you can get discounts on the prepaid cards for something like a Netflix subscription too. So keep an eye out for those.
All right. Up next. Oh, this was an interesting one that I was reading this morning. So there was at one point a feature where it was in accessibility, and this feature would let you turn on noise cancellation for your iPhone whenever you were placing a call. So what this did is it would, while you were talking on the phone and you were, having a conversation, it would listen to what sounds were being made out in the space using the built-in microphone that you're already talking into, and then provide some noise cancellation so that you could hear the other person better, and also so that they could hear you better. And this has long been a feature of the iPhone, but for some reason, in my settings, I do not have this feature. You'll go into settings, you'll tap on accessibility, and then you will go to audio/visual and tap on that. And that feature should be in this section. It's called noise. I think it's just called noise cancellation. And then it had a little bit of a
noise
descriptor.
Cancellation.
There you go.
Yeah.
Phone noise cancellation. And then it had a little bit of a descriptor about what this feature does. But iPhone 13 models don't seem to support this feature. And what's more, people have reached out to Apple support trying to find this feature, and Apple support says that iPhone 13 models don't support it. So we haven't gotten the official response from Apple proper or Apple corporate, but Apple support in some cases have said that iPhone 13 models do not support this feature. I'm so confused about why this feature would be removed, because this is a handy feature.
Yeah, I'm confused as well. And I'm wondering if that it's not so much that the phone doesn't support the feature. I'm wondering if they've just turned it on for everybody automatically, because I haven't noticed worse quality calls on my phone since I've switched to the iPhone 13. And I've asked some of the people that I call regularly, and they don't appear to be having an issue with this as well. Or they don't appear to have an issue, with my audio. It doesn't appear any worse to them. So I am wondering if maybe it's just on automatically now, because it is one of those things. If you look for noise canceling or something in the settings, then you're not going to find anything. If I just pull up my phone, I'm searching for Can, and I've got some Canon stuff here. If I search for noise, there's dark noise and noir. But other than that, inside of the sound options, I'm not really seeing anything here either. So I'm assuming that this is just something that's just on and you can't turn it off, because the iPhone 13 still has this little microphone back here on the back, which is what it uses to use that noise canceling. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully we'll find out soon. And if it is that they've removed the feature, I hope that they bring it back in future, because I'm sure this was incredibly important to many people.
Yeah, I really would like for it to come back. This next one is kind of an ongoing story. Apple has agreed, because it has to allow dating apps in the Netherlands to use alternative payment systems. So the Netherlands said, hey, specific to dating apps, you have to give these apps the opportunity, the choice to use third-party or alternative payment systems rather than just what comes with your own what's kind of built in. And so Apple said, cool, we'll do that. And they gave their proposal for how they were going to do that. And they're going to allow it, but Apple says that the developer must maintain a completely separate app binary. If you're wondering what the heck an app binary is, don't worry. It's just the file that is your app. That's the best way, I think, to describe it to the average person, is that it is everything that makes up an app. So when I go to publish an app to the App Store, I upload the app binary that has all that information, and that is then the app that people can download. But Apple is saying, not only do you have to have one that is, for the built-in purchases, but you've got to have one that has the third party, and so you'll have to maintain a completely separate app binary to include this feature. So it's a little bit of a hurdle for developers to use if they want to have this, but I assume that's so that Apple can track purchases using this third-party model and be able to still make money off of those, and how, all of that has to come together in some way.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for app developers to have different features included in different versions of the app. So people will probably be most aware of places like Facebook and Instagram, where different users appear to have different features at the same time. So, one person might have this view of the timeline and one person might have that view. But what app developers can also do is specifically create something so that it will appear in their test flight, in their beta version of the app, so that people can try it out. But when they still put that app on the regular app store, it doesn't show up. So it shouldn't be, I don't think, from experience, that much work for developers to create two different app binaries and upload both of them to the App Store. But it is an extra little thing that they're going to have to do. But that also means that because these third-party payment processors usually come with some extra tracking, that there might be a benefit to using the App Store purchase. But we'll have to see whether or not that pans out over time.
Indeed. And then last but not least, people should be aware that there is they've discovered a Safari bug that can reveal your recent browsing history and may potentially reveal your identity. This is an ongoing thing, but essentially it allows any website that uses a certain database. Actually, Rosemary, I'm going to let you take this one, because I think that you'll do a better job of summarizing it with your dev knowledge. So can you tell everybody about this bug?
So essentially, as you browse around the internet, Safari has a small database inside of it that keeps all of your information. Every web browser has this kind of information, and it allows things like your history and some of the cookies that websites give you and so on to be stored in one place. Now, I'm simplifying this because I don't think anybody really wants to know through iOS today all of the precise details. Those are readily available. But essentially, because this database exists, people are always trying to get information out of it. Because if you think about it, all of the websites that you visited all over the internet, that's pretty valuable information from purely an advertising and marketing perspective, let alone the fact that if I can get somebody's Google ID, hey, I can look them up and get a picture of them. And then I can use that picture and put that picture into an ad as well, just taking that creepiness factor up by about 5,000 levels. And it gives you a whole bunch of information, which you then, can use in a bunch of different ways. And unfortunately, right now, it appears that there is a bug which allows people to look into this database and read out a whole bunch of information, including that Google identifier I talked about, which can give you access to more than just a photo that's your profile picture on Google. I believe it also gives people access to your YouTube watch history or subscription list. I can't remember precisely. But basically, this means that if somebody is trying to, then they can get this information about you and potentially use it. So as soon as an update to iOS comes along, I recommend you install it. There is a really good video on Mac Rumors, which we can put a link to in the show notes, which explains how all of this works with the fingerprinting and so on. But essentially, it means that all of this information is kind of available right now, which isn't great, but Apple are aware of it, and I'm hoping that a fix will arrive soon.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure we will see that fix. And again, this is why it's important to install those updates as soon as possible. All right, folks, up next, I can already hear the sound of the music because we are about to head to Shotcuts Corner. Welcome to Shotcuts Corner, the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides a shortcuts solution. This is a very wonderful part of the show that, of course, last week people were hungry for their shortcuts answers, but with Rosemary out, we waited until this week for the inevitable return of Shotcuts Corner, and it is back. And our first Shotcuts Corner request comes from Craig. Craig writes in, I love all things Twit, including iOS today. Hey, thanks, Craig. I had a question for Rosemary regarding automation. Is it possible to set up an automation to turn on my Apple TV in the morning, launch Hulu, open a specific channel such as the local or national news, and tell it to play at a specific time? Thank you in advance. From Craig. All right. So I think part of this is possible, but I don't know if all of it is possible, but we're going to find out. Rosemary, what is your response?
So my response to Craig is we can do some of this. We can't quite do all of it. Specifically, the setting a specific channel on Hulu, that unfortunately is completely out of my control and not something you can do with shortcuts or indeed HomeKit automation. So you could do just the turning on the Apple TV or hitting play on the Apple TV at a certain time in the morning with a HomeKit automation. But opening a specific app, that needs some extra magic. And so for that, we're going to turn to the Shortcuts app and create a regular shortcut. We're not creating a HomeKit shortcut here. We're just creating a shortcut because Shortcuts itself has access to your Apple TV, but HomeKit automations, which you can use the convert to shortcut, unfortunately, they don't have the ability to control the Apple TV in that respect. They can play and they can pause, and that's it. But inside of shortcuts, there is some magic that we can make happen. And we have a whole suite of actions which allow us to do things on the Apple TV. So if you look inside of the actions and then you go to apps, there's one called Apple TV Remote. And this gives us a number of options. For example, we can toggle light and dark mode. We can set reduce loud sounds. We could skip content. We can switch user account, all sorts of things. But one of the things we can do, we can wake the Apple TV. So we can wake the Apple TV. Now, I don't have Hulu here in the UK, but I do have BBC iPlayer. And so I can open the BBC iPlayer app. This is another action we can use. Open app on Apple TV. And this just launches a specific app on your specified Apple TV. And then you can hit play. Now, based on various different things, this may or may not just work. Now, I was trying this out with a few apps earlier, and it appeared that running this for me would just play the last thing that was playing. So if the last thing that you were playing was the local news, then it will continue playing the local news. But this very much depends on the Hulu app and how it's programmed. So here's our shortcut. And this is, most of the magic sauce. But Craig wanted to be able to do this at a certain time. So I'm going to leave that shortcut there. And this is one we can share in the show notes. And then if we go into automations, then we can create a personal automation for a time of day. And now I'm going to do this and I'm going to set it to 8:15 and I'll say daily. You could also do weekly and choose specific days of the week. And this is how you can get rid of Saturdays and Sundays if you're using this on a TV in your bedroom and you don't want it waking you up on Saturdays and Sundays. but I'll leave that on. And then the next step is we can use the run shortcut action. And the run shortcut, we then just select the shortcut of the one that I've just shared. So I need to find the one with the Apple TV. I have way too many shortcuts, Mikah. This is a very me problem. But there we go. So we're using the run shortcut. And we could give it some information, but we don't need to do that. So we tap next and we turn off ask before running and then done. And then here in my personal automation list at 8:15, it's going to run my shortcut, which is the wake up Apple TV, open this app, and then hit play. And that's what it'll do. And fingers crossed, Craig, this is going to work for you. I cannot guarantee 100% that it will because I don't have the Hulu app myself. But fingers crossed, this is going to get you most of the way. So there we go.
Nice. All right, this next one comes from Eric. Eric writes in, thank you for the great shows. Hey, Eric, you're welcome. Being a thinker, sometimes I have thoughts or ideas that come to me when I can't do much about them. For example, when I am driving, oh my gosh, same, Eric. Something may come to mind that I want to remember later when I have the opportunity to write them down more thoroughly. I have tried, but to no success, to create a shortcut that will allow me to say record memo and will record my thought and create a note in notes while attaching my voice memo to that new note. It appears that the only way is to dictate text into a new note. However, I don't want to worry about grammar. I just want to speak my thought out and then I can listen to it again in the future. Can you help? Mm-hmm. So basically, Eric is saying, I want to save audio clips. I don't want to have to dictate that text out into a note, but just keep a note that is just an audio note. And can this be done?
Yes. Well, I mean, the part that struck me here is that Eric also wants to be able to put the text in the notes. And that's the part which makes this a little bit more complicated because Shortcuts does have an action called record audio, but it gives you audio. It also has an option to let you dictate text, which gives you text. And there's no specific one action that will do both. So actually, my recommendation for this is probably not to use shortcuts. I do have a shortcut here, which we're going to come back to. But instead, there's this great app. I mentioned it earlier, Mikah. It's called Just Press Record. And this will give you the option to record your audio. And it will also keep that text. So then you've got both, because I think that is quite important. Every so often, there's a little blooper or something where what you've said doesn't quite match up with what the transcription service is expecting you to say in that order. Maybe the grammar is not perfect. And so you need to be able to go back and listen. So Just Press Record has an Apple Watch app and it works really well. So that is actually what I would recommend. But this is Shortcuts Corner, and I know people want a shortcut solution. So I did my best to find one. It's not perfect. I've called it audio and text notes so that when you download this, Eric, it won't replace your voice memo one. But what it does is it records audio. Now, there is a slight downside to this. You can only finish recording after a certain time, or you're going to have to tap the watch face. And when you're driving, that's going to be a bit tricky to do. So make sure that you can do that in a way that is safe. If not, I would definitely use Just Press Record for this. And so it records it, and then it's going to create a variable, and it's using add to variable for this so that I end up with a variable with multiple things inside of it. So I'm adding my recorded audio to that. And then Toolbox Pro comes to the rescue. Toolbox Pro has an action called Recognize Speech in, and then you give it your audio. And so in this case, I'm giving it the note because right now it's just the note. Now you can set it to a specific locale. So for example, in Eric's case, I'm assuming English United States, but you could change that to, for example, English United Kingdom, or Singapore, or any of the other supported ones. Now, Toolbox Pro is using Apple's systems to do this, so you don't need to worry about data being sent anywhere else. And then there's also a perform offline action, which is slightly faster, but of course has naturally the downside of it's offline, so it can't necessarily get the updates for that. So wait to return. This is going to open the Toolbox Pro app, and then it's going to take a while. So you're going to need to use wait to return. And then it's going to add the clipboard. This action will put the text on your clipboard. So it adds the clipboard back to our variable called note, and then it creates a note with the audio and the text all in one place. And so fingers crossed, Eric, this helps you out. Though personally, my recommendation would be Just Press Record rather than using my slightly mad shortcut. But it does work. So you have options.
Very, very nice. All right, let's head into the feedback and questions before we round things out with our app caps. Paul has written in, help. Oh, and actually, we talked a little bit about this last week, and I was curious what options Rosemary had, because what we had told Paul last week is that this is one of those things that I think is going to improve when more apps get add support for the ultra wideband chips that are available in the Apple Watch and the iPhone. But this was Paul's question. Help, I keep leaving my iPhone behind. I enabled the new iOS 15 setting to have my watch to alert me when my iPhone loses separation from the watch. I've wanted this feature for years, and Apple finally put it in iOS 15, but it works poorly as I don't get notified on my watch until I'm 5 blocks away. How do we make this work so I get alerted ASAP when I'm out of range? From Paul. And yes, so Dan and I both were kind of like, hey, look, this is a feature that I don't think is going to work super well until we see some ultra wideband action. But I was curious what Rosemary thought about this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we've got a link for the show notes as to how you can enable that feature in the Find My app. I would do it, but it'll, I forgot to change my address before today's show, so it'll reveal my actual home address if I do that. But you can enable Notify When Left Behind. And if you're in the Devices tab, you can do it for your iPhone. And I'm guessing that is what we've done here to get this in the first place, because otherwise Paul is not going to be getting any notifications. But I found an app a little while ago called Phonebuddy. I actually found it just as we were on our break over the new year. And I've been saving this. It was going to be a future app cap. So, Paul, I'm going to let you steal this one from my future app cap pile. But basically, it'll send you a notification when you leave your phone behind. And I've been finding it works pretty well. And I'm enjoying this. It works. I think it's $4.99 to get the app, but it actually sends me notifications when I'm on the other side of my house to my phone. And so I would suggest if this is a problem for you, Paul, then this could be a good solution to that problem, because this app works great for me, and I've managed to not leave my phone at home with this app, which is kind of a shame because I bought a cellular watch because I accidentally left my phone at home a few too many times. So maybe next year I can save the cash instead.
There you go. All right. Next is Brian. Is there a way to transfer audio cassettes to the iPad Pro without using a Mac or a computer? I have a tape converter, but just wondering what type of adapter to use and what app. Thanks, from Brian. Of course, we know this is possible for a Mac computer and the audio cassette, but actually being able to do it on the iPad, a little bit more difficult. Rosemary, you seem to have a potential solution.
Yeah, so this very much depends on the kind of cassette converter that Brian has. And I'm very much hoping that it's one that also just has the ability to hit play and then actually play it to some kind of audio output. Now, ideally, this would be a, say, 3.5 millimeter headphone cable, because then, Brian, depending on which iPad you've got, you can buy the headphone adapter. You can buy it from Apple. You could buy a Belkin or third-party one. There's USB-C and Lightning. So you're going to need to get the right one for your iPad, depending on which one you've got. If you've got the iPad Pro or the new iPad Mini, that's USB-C. Otherwise, it's going to be a Lightning adapter. But if you can do that, then you can hit play, and that audio gets pumped into your iPad. Now, depending on which app you do this with, you should be able to actually record from that input, because that is providing an input to your iPad. And so I would recommend having a play around with GarageBand and Voice Memos. Both of these are free apps that they're from Apple, so they probably came pre-installed on your iPad, or at the very least GarageBand did. So you can give both of those a go and give it a try, and fingers crossed you're going to be able to record those cassettes onto your iPad. Now, I can't guarantee amazing audio fidelity and quality. That's going to be tricky. But if you're just after saving the cassettes and saving the audio somewhere where you can share them with your friends and family, then this is probably going to be the best way to go.
Awesome. All right, folks, it's time for the app caps. I got to tell you, I'm very excited about my app cap today. This was a Christmas gift from my beloved. And it was funny because I mentioned this in passing one time. I was like, this is the funniest hat I've ever seen in my life. And he remembered and he got it for me for Christmas. And it was such a surprise. And I'm trying to readjust the thing so I can put it on.
There we go. Oh, wow. We both went baseball caps. Both of us.
Go baseball
Both of us,
caps.
Mikah.
So Rosemary Orchard, first, tell us about the cap atop your head, and then tell us about your app pick of the week, or your pick of the week this week.
Well, so the cap atop my head is a Macstock hat, which I got at one of the Macstocks that I attended, and it's got peace, love, and Max on the front because, everybody loves some peace, everyone loves some love, and if you're watching iOS today, I hope you like Apple enough to say maybe macOS isn't the best platform. Come on, it's iPadOS or iOS or tvOS or watchOS or HomePodOS, but Macs are pretty cool. But my app of the day is not an app at all, because this is something that I keep seeing people talking about, and Wordle is a craze that has taken over everywhere, seemingly, where everybody wants to try and guess the 5-letter word. So I will give a little demo for those of you who have not seen this and you've only sort of vaguely heard of it before. And so this is a website. It's paralanguage.co.uk, and then the Wordle part is on the end, /Wordle. And then you go to the website and you have to try and guess the Wordle in 6 tries. And it gives you 5 letters. So it's always a 5-letter word, and you always have to input a actual valid 5-letter words. So for example, I'm going to not think of a I won't be able to think of a word that isn't real that's 5 letters now. I don't know. Canto is a real word. There we go. Teary. There we go, Mikah. Thank you. But what the idea is, what you do is you have to try and guess. So there's lots of different ways to try this. I like trying to use a word first. It's got quite a few vowels in it and some common letters. And it's given me a green one, which shows me that this R is in the right space, but all the others are gray and they're blocked out. I can still type them, but they aren't really going to help me with anything else. Okay, so I am going to try pores. Let's give that a go. Okay, so now I can see that R and O are in the right place. The R and O are great letters, but they're in the wrong place. P is still in the right place, or P is in the right place. Okay, so I know that P and R, and there's going to be an O in there somewhere. Okay, and then, well, I am going to just give this a go with, prod doesn't have 2 Ds. Maybe I'll just give prods a go for starters. Okay, so it's PRO something. I actually know the Wordle of the day. So I'm not going to continue there because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But you can add this as an app on your home screen. And I did this, and I've got some widgets here from before when I was last playing with things for iOS today. But I added this to my home screen, and somebody saw it the other day and said, wait, how do you do that? Because I didn't realize that Wordle can be an app on your home screen. Now, you can't download it from the App Store, but what you can do is if you tap on the share sheet icon, then if you scroll down, you'll see an add to home screen button. And here you can even, rename it if you wanted to something else, and then you can tap add, and then it'll appear on your home screen. Now, there is something to note here, and that is that this is a bookmark. But it's not just a bookmark. When you open it, it actually opens a different cache. So it's got all of that information. People might remember earlier in the show, we were talking about that Safari bug. This is using a separate kind of database, essentially. So that then when you open it up, everything starts over. So if you look in your statistics, I have 0 played, 0 wins, 0 is my current streak, and 0 is my max streak. But if I go back into here, then I'll just swipe away from that so I don't spoil it for anybody. I've actually got my streak in there. So you can actually even add this to your home screen multiple times. And so you can have multiple versions of it on the go if you wanted to, but you can add an app to your home screen. Now, I am going to quickly, and this is a warning for anybody who doesn't want to see the word, open the app, and then I'm going to tap on share. You are safe, people. You will not be seeing the word if you look now. And so if you tap on share, then it actually gives you a little share option. I'll just share to drafts, and it shares the Wordle with emoji. So you've got green emoji and black emoji, and it shows you it's the Wordle of the day. I guessed it in 3 goes out of the 6 available to me. And that's pretty cool. But if you wanted maybe to be able to do something a bit different to that and customize it so you can share your Wordle and you can share it differently, then what you can do instead is you can use a little shortcut that I've made for you, which is now hiding. There it is. It's the Emoji Wordle. And so when you tap on this, it'll ask you how many guesses you needed and then go through and on each guess for each guess ask you how many that you got right. And then you can customize your emoji in here to give you an easy way to share this. So if you wanted to replace all of your green squares with unicorns, then that would be easy enough to do. You just pop into here and then you have to look under the animals. And I'm not going to find the unicorn now. She's hiding from me. There she is. So there we go. I've got green unicorns and then I could put something different in here. I don't know. Suggestions, Mikah? For what to put in for the incorrect one. I was thinking maybe a toilet, but that seems a little on the nose, perhaps.
Just a thumbs down.
Thumbs down. Okay, we'll go friendly with thumbs down. There we go. And so then when you run it, then what you can do is you can say, I'll say that I took 2 guesses to get it. And I got 1, 3, and 5 on the first one. And then I got all of them on the last one because your last guess, my shortcut's optimistic. It hopes that you got them right. And then it shares it and it puts it on your clipboard. And now you can see that I have all of the emoji in a block ready to share. And because emoji are magic, they are always the same width. So fingers crossed, this should work on whatever platform you want to share it on.
Magic emoji. Gotta love them. Yes, everyone should try out Wordle and get it set up. Like I also have that set up so that I can launch it from my phone's home screen. Folks, the cap I'm wearing atop my head is the most amazing hat in the world for me. So it is a hat that has a blue bill. It's like a standard baseball cap that has a blue bill and then a khaki colored cap, the part that actually goes over your head. And on it, embroidered on the front like a baseball team's badge, is a hat that has a blue bill and a khaki colored cap. So it is the hat. And I love my hat so much. It is just a hat that has the hat that I'm wearing embroidered on the front of it. Now it's not recursive in this. I think that's the proper term. The cap that is embroidered on the cap does not also have a cap embroidered on it. So
yeah,
it doesn't keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller from there.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
But still, this is my hat. I love my hat. It is, like I said, it was a Christmas gift that I was so pumped to get. Absolutely. So the app that I want to talk about is actually one that that folks may be familiar with, but maybe they've never downloaded it before. And it is called Etsy. Yes, the site for crafting and homemade gifts and all sorts of stuff. Etsy is my favorite because this is where I go. People have asked me before, like, where do you find crochet patterns? Where do you find new ideas for things to make? If you're listening to the show and you didn't know, I do a lot of knitting and crochet stuff and tend to give out crochet items as gifts for people. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll start on Etsy. So I'll head over to Etsy. Say someone I know is a huge fan of owls. I would head over to Etsy and I would type in where it says search for anything on Etsy, owl crochet, and then hit enter. And then I can look for different options that are available here. There's this really adorable Alda the Owl crochet pattern. The thing that's so cool about Etsy, there's a very like realistic barn owl crochet. The thing that I love about Etsy is that there are so many different people making so many different kinds of things that you can really find loads of different options and maybe some things that you wouldn't think of. And so this actually was helpful for like, wow, look at this crochet wrap. That's like a scarf almost. That is gorgeous. So what happened is that one of my family friends, she loves moose. And last year for Christmas, I gave her a crochet moose. It has this adorable little what is it called? Turtleneck sweater on. And while I was thinking about things, something to give her for this past Christmas, I just typed in moose crochet on Etsy to see what else would come up. And it just so happened that there was a pattern to make crochet slippers that were in the shape of a moose. And it was just the perfect idea for her. And it was nice because, you know, last year I got her something that she keeps on now on her fireplace all year round, which is very sweet. But I wanted to get her something that she could actually use. And so this is... these are the crochet slippers that are moose themed. So you can see it's just got the little eyes. You can't quite see it, but it also has little nostrils there. But then the moose ears and the moose antlers stick out to the side. And they're made with chenille yarn. So they're super, super, super soft. And they're like slipper socks. So she put them on and she was like, I don't think I'm ever going to take these off again. Very excited. But then I also made this Highland cow for a family member who really likes Highland cows, and a little alpaca for a family member that really likes alpacas. And then this was the moose that I was talking about that I made last year. So that you can see its little, what is it called? Again, turtleneck that it's wearing. But basically, almost all of those patterns I got from doing Etsy searches and then was able to work through the pattern to create the thing. And what's fun about it is you often end up customizing things in a way that works for you. So there were some embellishments that I added, that I decided to add to some of the projects that I worked on, and some things that I did differently. And as you start to get better at it, then you learn new things. But I noticed that while I was using Etsy to learn about not learn about owl crochet, but to pick up new patterns, Etsy has a fantastic suggestions area. And of course, they're in the business of trying to get you to buy more because that makes them money. But what I love is that often it has been the case that these different suggestions that they make have led me down new routes, including larger patterns and even miniature patterns. There are some flower patterns that I'm going to be trying soon that are a little bit different. And then also getting into things like old school crochet, which was originally like doilies and things like that. So all sorts of different kinds of patterns that I hadn't even considered before, ultra realistic crochet, all sorts of stuff. And that is because as I've added patterns to my favorites by hitting the little heart icon, it has figured out what I like, what I don't like, and is using that information to suggest new things to me. So that in particular is why I suggest getting the Etsy app. If you are a creative person, it's a great way to find, Loquacious in the chat has said, Etsy is great for felting ideas too. It's where I go, it's where I got the idea to make my own Gaia, voodoo dolls, and whales. So if you're into felting, you can head there to learn more about that. And then, as I said, it's so nice that over time, it suggested new things to me, but it's just such a robust marketplace for all sorts of patterns that different people have made over time. And I've gotten some pretty cool knitting patterns from there as well. So love getting to support individuals. There are, of course, like anywhere, there are some of the stuff that exists on Etsy is actually made kind of by big companies that are just kind of out to make money. So oftentimes you have to be careful whenever you're getting something like a mug with something printed on it. It's a lot of the times not made by an individual, but a lot of the times these patterns and things like that are truly made by individuals. And there was one pattern I was working on where I had an issue. This is the other thing that makes it cool about Etsy. You can be in communication with the person who made the thing. And so I was working on a pattern and I got to a part, and the way that they had written out the instructions was confusing to me. And so I hopped over to Etsy and I chose to chat with the person. And I said, hey, thanks so much. This is a great pattern, because in every other way, it was really well documented and stuff. But I had just one question, one issue here. And they wrote back within an hour of me communicating with them with so many more instructions and clarifications. And we went back and forth so that I got to the information that I needed. And it was just such a delightful experience. And then there was another one where the pattern later on, the creator had updated the pattern with some more information, so it was easy to go and download the newer version of it. So yeah, I really like Etsy for all of those reasons. It's a great place to go as a creative person. So you can download Etsy for free from the App Store. And then, of course, it is an app that is a commerce app, so you will buy things, obviously. Lots of different sites offer Apple Pay, or lots of different sellers offer Apple Pay, which is really nice, and also not nice because it means that I'm like, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, and suddenly I've got 6 or 7 different patterns, and I'm, buying all of them, and I'm like, I won't be getting to that one for a year, but at least I have it. So it's a slippery slope a little bit. You could end up spending more than you intended to, but super great. That's Etsy. So thank you all for tuning in this week. Of course, if you've got questions, feedback, etc., you can send those to iostoday@twit.tv. We record the show live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can tune in live by going to twit.tv/live. That's an awesome way to watch the show because you get to see all the stuff that we end up editing out afterwards. But we think that the best way to get the show is by subscribing, following, however you want to put it, to the show by going to twit.tv/iOS and clicking to subscribe to audio or subscribe to video. You choose your provider or your podcast application or whatever it is that you're using, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. Click on that. You'll get that version of the show. We think the video version of the show is the best version, but we do our best to make sure that the audio version is descriptive enough so that you can still listen without needing to see the show. So that's up to you on which version you download. I should also mention the very cool Club Twit. For $7 a month, you too can join the club. Each month, well, I guess as long as you're a subscriber, you're going to get access to the Twit feed for each show. It's an ad-free version of each and every show on Twit. So you will get your kind of own custom set of feeds for all of the shows, and that will have all of the ads removed from it. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has content you won't find anywhere else, including, I think recently was just recorded an AMA with Andy Anatko. I've had an AMA. Mary Jo Foley has had an AMA. Steve Gibson AMA. There have been a lot of different sort of interview things that have now made their way into that Twit Plus bonus feed, and you'll get access to the Discord server. What's a Discord server, you may be asking? If you've ever used Slack or Microsoft Teams, you'll be familiar with the way that this works. It's just a place where you can go and chat with your fellow Club Twit members, but also those of us here at Twit. I know that we get lots of great questions via the Discord, and Rosemary Orchard is very active there in the Discord as well, so it's a great place to hang out. All of that available at twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online, where do they go to do so?
Best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the things I do online. And of course, you can also find me in the Club Twit Discord, as Mikah mentioned, or on Twitter with the username Rosemary Orchard. What about you, Mikah?
I am at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Or you can also just watch the other shows here, Tech News Weekly and The Tech Guy, to hang out with us each week. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sending in your feedback and your questions and everything. Rosemary and I love to answer those and help people out. That's the whole point of the show, so it's a lot of fun when those come through, and we love to hear from you. So once again, iOS Today at twit.tv. We will see you next week, but until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Have you ever read a tech news story and thought to yourself, man, I would love to talk to the person who wrote this to find out more information? Well, that's exactly what Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, do each and every week on Tech News Weekly. We read the stories that matter to us, we reach out to the people making and breaking the tech news, and we invite them on to tell their story. And you can find it at twit.tv. Look for Tech News Weekly every Thursday.